Hello, sir. Good evening.
So, good afternoon, all the learners. So, once again, I welcome you all to this platform. So, as you know, from today we are going to start your history portions. So, you have in this BHIC 132, you are having 16 units. First unit will be very interesting, definitely. It will be from your, and the total BHIC 132 will be on your 300 century to 1216. No, 1206 to 1206. And the first unit actually is very interesting because it covers about the rise and growth of your Guptas or Gupta dynasty. So I'm sure you will always all will enjoy this course as well as it will help you for better preparation for your ensuing exam. So, and from today for next 5 days, your counselor will be Dr. Suresh Kumar Pandey. So, it is again, once again, my earnest request, please interact with your counselor, come prepared at least about the units of the portions already, because already we have given it to you, sent it to you earlier in our detailed schedule. So come prepared, listen properly and interact during the questionnaire session. That will help you actually. Otherwise, you will not be benefited much. That is my idea. So, okay, learners, now I hand over this platform to your new counselor, Dr. S.K. Pandey. Okay, sir, thank you. Please come.
Thank you, sir.
आज कौन क्लास हबनी कि?
होउची परा
ଶୁଭୁନି କିଛି।
एक्सक्यूज मी सर किछि सुभा जाउनी। नहीं सर। अरे भाई
କିଛି ଶୁଭା ଯାଉନି।
Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have some guidelines for study of the course. You have already known about the previous course, History of India from early times up to 3rd century CE. So now in this class, we discuss about 3 units I have already told you. So in this course, BHIC 132, we have 16 units. Today we discuss only 3 units, first, second, and third. So there is a general guidelines for the study of the course. In this course, we have followed a uniform pattern of presenting the learning materials. We start with an introduction to the course underlying the significant development in a chronological order and cover 16 units. For the convenience of study, all the units have been presented with a uniform structure. Objectives in the first section of the unit have been included to help you find what are you expected to learn from the study of the unit. Please go through these objectives carefully and keep reflecting and checking them after studying a few sections of the unit. Introduction of the unit introduces you to subject areas covered and guides you to the way the subject matter is presented. These are followed by the main subject area discussed through section and subsections for age of comprehension. In between the text, some checks your progress have been provided. So you have to check in interim to know about your progress. Then we advise you to attempt these and when you reach them. These will help you assess your study and state your comprehension of the subject studied. Compare your answers with the answer guidelines provided after the summary. There is a summary at the last part of the every unit. So summary is most important to understand easily. And in short period, you have to understand easily. So at the end of the unit, under suggested readings, we have also provided a list of books or articles as a reference. There is a reference at the end of the chapter. So you can collect those books and study about your course, what you have taught, what you are going to know or learn. So these include the sources which are useful or have been consulted for developing the material for the concerned unit. You should try to study them. They will help you in understanding and learning the subject matter in an all-inclusive manner. So, course introductions. We have course introduction. History is a chronological study. This is in continuation to the course BHIC 131. History is a continuous process. You have already known in before classes. History is a continuous process. It is not a haphazard subject. It is a continuous subject. So chronologically, this is in continuation to the course BHIC 131, what you have learned, gathered some knowledge in the before classes. So history of India from the earliest times up to 3rd century CE. CE means here common era. Now currently or recently this is used by the historians, by the students of history, Department of History, CE. Before it was named as AD, Anno Domini, but recently it has changed its names as CE. common era. So it gives a historical overview of major politics that emerged and made their mark during this period, both in the northern and southern India. So history, you know, the past politics. History, the meaning of history is the past politics. Once it was politics, and now it is history. So major politics were there, and emerged many politicians at the time and gave their contributions towards the history of India. So the Guptas, the Pushyabhutij, followed by the Pallavas, the Pandyas, the Kalachuris, the Kadambas, the Chalukyas, the Cholas, the Hoysals, the Rajput, the Rashtrakutas, the Arabs, and the invasions of Muhammad Ghazani and Muhammad Ghori. So from time to time, India was captured, ruled by many rulers, Hindu rulers, Muslim rulers, Mughal rulers, and the British rulers. So it also encapsulates, we discuss in this class about the economic condition, social and cultural history of this period. So social history, we have to know about the social history, cultural history, economic history. History is not only the warfare and the kings, queens, and battles, but history has already taken in its pages about the economic condition, the past economic condition of the people, the social life of the people, the cultural activities of the people. So the Gupta periods today we are going to discuss about it exhibits, demonstrates and reflects. This applies to the land holdings, revenue system, agrarian relations, social structure, gender relations, growth and development of art, language and literature, coming up of religion, and the ensuing religious trends, etc. All were history. So, hence, it offers an in-depth insight into the significant transition from the early history to the early medieval period of Indian history. We need to understand and study this shift as student of Indian history. As the student of history of India, student of the Department of History, we have to learn about the history of the past, the history of our achievements, the history of our social life, the history of our cultural life, the history of our economic life. All are history. So, this course covers 16 units, arranged and ordered both thematically and sequentially. So, we have to discuss because of time constraints, limited sum of time, we have come to the course. I am not going in details about these previous ideas. So, rise, unit first, rise and growth of the Guptas. Rise and growth of the Guptas. So, I have already told you about the structure, objective, introduction, and political background, the rise of the Guptas and the rulers, and like the summary, keywords. Very nicely, the scholars of history, the historians, the experts of history designed the course in similar way to understand very clearly. So, first unit, rise and growth of the Guptas. Political background. There is a political background of the rise and growth of the Guptas. So, political background, in the beginning of the 4th century CE, Common Era, no large state structure existed in India. You have read in earlier course that in the post-Mauryan periods, two large state structure had emerged in North India and in the Deccan. Deccan means the south portion of India, south parts of India. These were the Kusana state of the north and the Satavahana state of the Deccan. But although the Kusanas and Saka chiefs continued to rule even in early 4th century CE, their power had become considerably weak, and the Satavahana state had disappeared before the middle of the 3rd century CE. So this does not matter, however, mean that there was complete political vacuum. We cannot say there was political vacuum. There was no major political power, but there were minor powers and new families of rulers were emerging. It was in this situation that the Guptas, a family of uncertain origins, began to build up an empire from the beginning of the 4th century CE. So, before we take up the history of the empire, we present an outline of the political situation of this period by taking up different regions separately. So, northwestern and northern India. Thereafter, western and central India, the Deccan and the South India. So, the rise of the Gupta, taking the disadvantage, weakness of those rulers, the rule of those rulers, the Guptas occupied that place, so ruled that place and thereafter grew time after time. So the rise of the Guptas, different scholars also place the original home of the Gupta differently. Some would place it in North Bengal, some in Magadha in Bihar, and some in Uttar Pradesh, UP. On the basis of the following arguments, it may at the moment be suggested that the original core of the Gupta territory lay in eastern UP. After examined by the experts of history, they identified that the Gupta territory lay in eastern Uttar Pradesh. So, history without sources can't say about real thing. So, there were some sources, Allahabad pillar inscriptions, the earliest inscription recording the achievements of an early Gupta ruler Samudragupta comes from the region. Allahabad pillar inscription that was written by his court poet Hari Sen. The nature of the coin hoards of the Guptas found in this region suggests this. The description of early Gupta's territory in the Puranas also may point to this. Purana also we have, the historians have referred about the rise and growth of the Guptas. So it is possible that in the closing decades of the 3rd century CE, the Guptas were subordinates of a branch of the later Kusanas ruling in northwestern India. However, literary and archaeological sources indicate that they became independent in the 2nd decade of the 4th century CE. So inscriptions tell us that Sri Gupta was the first king and Ghatakata was the next to follow him. So the first king of Gupta dynasty, he was Sri Gupta. Sri Gupta, thereafter he was ruled in India, ruled as the ruler of Gupta dynasty from 240 CE to 280 CE. Thereafter his son Ghatakata was the next ruler. Thereafter Chandragupta I was the first independent king. The two before Chandragupta I, Sri Gupta and Ghatatkacha, they themselves styled as Maharaja. So Chandragupta I was the first independent king with the title of Maharajadhiraja. Chandragupta I Maharajadhi Raja. That was his great title. After declaring this his independence in Magadha, he, with the help of a matrimonial alliance with the Lichavi dynasty, enlarged his kingdom. He could enlarge his kingdom by a matrimonial alliance with the Lichavi. We know about this alliance from a special category of coins. Coins also help us to rewrite history or give information about to write history. This is a source of writing history, coins, inscriptions. There are many archaeological sources, all were the helpful documents, helpful sources to rewrite the history of ancient India. So these coins have Chandragupta and his queen Kumara Devi engraved on the obverse and a seated goddess on the reverse with a legend Lichovaya. The Lichovis, these coins were made of gold. And this fact, in addition to the fact that the Guptas followed the weight system also of Kusana gold coin, weight system, suggests that the Guptas had been in contact with the Kusana territories. So thereafter, Chandragupta first is said to have also started a new era from 319 to 320 CE. It is not clear from any records that he started this era, which came to be known as Gupta era or Gupta Sambhata or Gupta era. But since Chandragupta first is mentioned as a Maharajadhiraja, he is credited with the founding of the era. It was during the time of his son Samudragupta that the kingdom grew into an empire. So thereafter, Samudragupta was the son of Chandragupta first. So he was also a Maharaja of the Raja. And thereafter, various controversy has arisen for the ascending the throne. In many respects, Kocha's coins, Kocha he was his brother, Kocha was his elder brother. Kocha's coins are similar to the coins of Samudragupta. The name of Kocha does not appear in the official list of the Gupta rulers as they are available in the Gupta inscription. So, there is no solution to the controversy as each view has arguments in favor or against. We could only say that since the number of Kocha coins found so far is somewhat limited, his hold over the throne would have been for a very short duration. Also, that Samudragupta, in spite of Chandragupta's ambition, did face problems in relation to accession to the throne, but untimely he emerged victorious. So, after ascending the throne, Samudragupta he first, and it has already written in the Prayag Prasasti, means Allaba Pilar Prasasti, which was written by his good poet Harisena. His able minister Harisena wrote Prayag Prasasti. So, campaign in Arjabharta, the Uttar side, the northern side of India was known as Arjabharta. So, some historians assuming that the Prayag Prasasti mentions the conquest of Samudragupta in a chronological order, have opined that there were two campaigns in North India. There is because the Prasasti first mentioned three Arjabharta kings. Then it goes on to mention his southern campaign and again mention 9 Arjabharta kings. So thereafter, many kings, many places of Arjabharta occupied by Samudragupta. Thereafter, campaign in southern part of India was captured. Some parts, some places, some territory of southern parts of India was captured, occupied by Samudragupta. The Prayag Prasasti mentioned 12 rulers from Dakshina Patha, means South India. Dakshina Patha means South India, who were defeated by Samudragupta, who were Mahendra of Kosala, Yatraraj of Mahakantara, Mantra Raja of Gaurata, Mahendragiri of Pishtapura, Sarnidatta of Katura. So like this way, he occupied of the many places of the rulers. However, again there are differences among historians as to the specific identification of each king and their kingdom. The Prayag Prasasti says that Samudragupta showed favor to Dakshinapatha kings by first capturing them, Grahana, and then releasing them. So Atharva Veda, Arjabharta, North India, he not only defeated them but also annexed their territories. So all these were mentioned in the Prayag Prasasti, so that he had done many many wars with other territories, kings of other territories, so that in view of his heroic soldierly qualities, Vincent Smith described Indian Napoleon. He is also described as or regarded as the Indian Napoleon. Samudragupta is described as or regarded as the Indian Napoleon because of his soldierly quality, heroic soldierly quality. So many of the claims made by Harisena, the composer of Prayag Prasasti, are highly exaggerated, but many of the claims are also genuine. The military foundation of the Gupta Empire were led by Samudragupta. His successors built upon this foundation. Thereafter, his successor named Chandragupta II. The Gupta inscription mentions Chandragupta II as Samudragupta's successor. And we know about Chandragupta II from the writing of Harsacharita. Pranabhata has written his book Harsacharita. After another book, Kadhya Mimamsa. All those were the sources of the role of Chandragupta II. We can also know and also a genuine, authentic source foreign accounts, Hayhan's foreign account, Hayhan's account, and all those sources give us about the many information about the rule, about his expeditions, military expeditions, about his cultural activities, awareness, rule towards the people. We can find from the sources. So there was also a matrimonial alliance with the Nagas by marrying Princess Kumera Naga. His daughter Prabhavati was later on married to Rudra Sena of the Bhakataka family. So there was matrimonial relation, alliances with the other dynasty only to gain, to extend the empire and to get help from them, so that there was matrimonial alliance. Chandragupta II, he was adorned by 9 gems, Navaratna, 9 gems. So 9 gems, who are 9 gems? You know Kalidasa, thereafter Baraha Mihira, Vararuchi, Vedala Bhatta, Bhatta Karpara, Dhanvantari, Japaneka, Amara Singha, Sangu, they adorned the palace court of Chandragupta II, and also sometimes Chandragupta II advised by them so that each period, each time, as well as the Gupta era, the Gupta dynasty, the Gupta rule has been described as the golden age. So, Chandragupta II, he was also a soldierly activities in his mind. He did not care to the other rulers. We no longer find any Sakaj coins minted after this period, although Sakaj coins were being minted without a break for almost 400 years previously. So the Guptas from the time of Chandragupta started minting Saka type of silver coins for this region. The coins were like Saka coins in circulation till then. This definitely shows that the Saka areas came within the control of Chandragupta II. The successor of Chandragupta II against the Sakaj seems to have developed later on into the tradition of Sakari, Vikramaditya, because of he was the enemy of Sakaj. So he was other title, other name was Sakari Vikramaditya. Vikramaditya who was an enemy of the Sakaj. So King Chandra, whose exploits have been mentioned in the Mehruli iron pillar inscriptions, located in the Qutub Minar complex in Delhi, is identified by many scholars with Chandragupta II. So we can find the achievements, the exploits of Chandragupta II from the iron pillar at Mehruli, located in the Qutub Minar complex. So you have seen that, you must know about that iron pillar near Qutub Minar complex. So according to this tradition, Chandra crossed the Sindhu region of 7 rivers and defeated Bhallikas, identified as Bactria. Some scholars identified Samudragupta with the hero of Kalidasa's war, Raghuvansha, because Raghu's exploits appear comparable with those of Chandragupta. So his works were described in the book of Kalidasa, named Raghuvansha. The Mehruli inscription also mentions Chandragupta's victory over enemies from Banga or Bengal. The early name of Bengal was Banga. On this basis, this evidence, it can be suggested that Chandragupta II was able to extend the frontiers of the Gupta Empire in western, northern, northwestern, and eastern India. An important incident which took place during the period was the visit of Haihan. Haihan was a Chinese pilgrim who came to India in search of Buddhist texts. In his memoirs, he has given a vivid description of the places he visited and certain social and administrative aspects related to them. So, Chinese pilgrims, Haihan, visited India during the time of Gupta age, and he wrote a book, collected many ideas, many information from India about the social life of the people, administrative structure of the people, structure of the dynasty, and all those aspects related to them. However, it does not mention the name of the king in his accounts, but he speaks highly of the king of Madhya Desha, the region which was directly ruled by the Gupta monarch in this period. So, in his book, the book name was Ho Ki. Chandragupta II is also known for his patronage of men of letters He was not only a warrior, not only a ruler, but also a lover of cultural activities, patronage to men of letters, and he ruled till about 415 to 16 CE. So, after him, his son, named Kumara Gupta, we get information about him from certain inscription and coins. So we can know the information, know the many activities of Kumaragupta from there were some certain inscriptions the historians can use while during the time of writing history. And coins also many sources of writing history about the Gupta era or Gupta dynasty. So the earliest known inscription of each period is from Bilsad, which is dated 415 CE. The Karam Danda inscription of Kumaragupta's ministers mentions its fame having spread to the four oceans. So, like this way, the Damodar copper plate inscriptions also refers to him as Maharajadhraja. Thereafter, so that he himself appointed the governor Uparika. Governor means Uparika of Pundrabardhan Bhukti or province. Province being the biggest administrative division in the empire. The last known date of Kumaragupta is from a silver coin dated 455 CE. So after him, Skandhagupta, who succeeded Kumaragupta first, Skandhagupta succeeded Kumaragupta first, was perhaps the last powerful Gupta monarch. To consolidate his position, he had to fight the Pushyamitras, and the country faced Huna invasion from across the frontiers in the northwest. However, Skandagupta was successful in throwing the Hun invasion. It appears that these wars adversely affected the economy of the empire, and the gold coinage of Skandagupta bears testimony to that. In comparison to the gold coins of the earlier rulers, the types of gold coins minted by Skandagupta were limited. So, in addition to the earlier system,
Sir, page number कितने हैं? Sir, page
What?
number कितने हैं? Page number sir.
Page number 17. Page number 17, you can find
Sir, Kautilya अर्थशास्त्र.
Kautilya's Arthashastra. No, Arthashastra was in earlier classes you have already known. Kautilya's Arthashastra, not in this,
Thank you, sir.
in this chapter.
Thank
So, Allahabad Pilar Prasasti, you know about Allahabad Pilar Prasasti, for such your various institutions they were referred by the historians, by the expert of history. Gupta rulers after Skandagupta, it is not very clear in what order the successor of Skandagupta ruled. Skandagupta himself may not have been the rightful heir to the throne, and therefore he had to fight other contenders to the throne. After Skandagupta, there were no suitable or powerful, rightful successors. So after him, the Gupta dynasty going to decline. So some of the successors of Skandagupta mentioned in the inscriptions were Buddhagupta, Vainagupta, Ghanagupta, Narasingha Gupta. Like this way, there were many rulers ruled in India, early India, during the time of Gupta era or Gupta dynasty, but they were not powerful, they were weak, they were unworthy, so that the Gupta dynasty was going to decline, going to destroy. So there were disintegration of the Gupta Empire. There were disintegration. In this section, we deal with some of the factors that contributed towards the disintegration of the Gupta Empire. Hun invasion was a that was the most important factors for the disintegration of the Gupta Empire. Thereafter, administrative weakness, after Skandagupta, there were no ableist rulers, Urti rulers, foot-sighted rulers, so that the Gupta era, the Gupta dynasty is going to decline. So there is no doubt that divisions within the imperial families, concentration of power in the hands of local chiefs, of governors, loose administrative structure of the empire, etc., contributed towards the disintegration of the Gupta Empire. So we have to know next unit second, about economy, society, culture, and quality of the Guptas. The Gupta era, I have already told you, the Gupta age or the Gupta dynasty, Gupta rule, already I have told you about it is regarded as the golden age because of peace, progress, cultural progress, and prosperity. Only or mainly three regions, the Gupta age has been described as the golden age. The culture reached its pinnacle at the time, various developments in the field of many aspects, many aspects. There were developments, and those developments at that time reached at the highest stage, and all aspects were related to the people, related to the subjects, praja. So the subjects or the people of the dynasty, the common people of the dynasty they were living happily. There were no problems in the field of economic side, in the field of social side, in the field of religious side also. So we can know about economy, society, culture, and quality of the time of Gupta period. So inscriptions written by different materials like copper plates, stone, clay, slate, clay fields. Coins issued by rulers of different dynasties. Material from excavations. Contemporary literature also. We can know the history of an age of the rule from literary sources. So accounts left by foreign travelers also, we can find many informations about history of that time. So administration under the Guptas. The most important person of Gupta era, Gupta dynasty was the administrative systems. The king, he was the central figure of administration. There was a considerable change in the character of monarchy. We find that the Gupta monarchs adopted high-sounding titles of the Gupta kings like Parama Bhattaraka, Parama Daivata, Chakravarti, Parameswara. So, Allahabad pillar inscription or Allahabad Prasasti of Samudragupta describe him as equal to the gods Ganda, Kubera, Varuna, Indra, Antaka, who had no antagonist of equal power in the world. So, like the king who has been given a divine status in the Smriti scriptures, the Gupta monarchs too came to be considered a on divinity of earth. However, in the spirit of Smriti literature, that of Kalidasa, we find Skandagupta his Vaitari Pilari son eulogized as a person who subdued the earth and became merciful to the conquered people, but he became neither proud nor arrogant through his glory was increasing day by day. So, like this way, they were titled themselves. It was the king's duty to decide the policy of the state during war and peace. Samudragupta was prudent enough to reinstate the monarchs of Dakshinapatha in their original kingdoms. It was considered a prime duty of the monarch to protect his countrymen from any invasion. As a good administrator, they considered to save the people, to save the countrymen was their prime duty. So that they were respected, they were regarded by the people, and the people could help them in every aspect, every sphere of the administrative system of Gupta Empire. So the king was to lead the army in case of war. This is demonstrated through the campaigns of Samudragupta and Chandragupta II. The king was also the Brahmins, Sramanas, and all others who needed his protection. So every time, at any moment, the Gupta kings, they could help, they could support the needy person, the person who need at the time of. He was also supposed to venerate the learned and religious people and give them every possible help. As the supreme judge, he looked after administration. Sometimes the Gupta kings, they ruled as the supreme judge, according to religious prospects and artistic customs. It was the duty of the king to appoint his central and provincial officers. So the king himself appointed to the provincial officers for the benefit of the province and also for the benefit of the kingdoms. So the prayer Prasasti as well as the Apratigha type coins of Kumaragupta point to the appointment of successor to the throne by the reigning king. An important political development of this period was the continuity of various kings in their regions once they had accepted the suzerainty of the king, Gupta king. And the Gupta king would not interfere with the administration of such regions. So, Council of Ministers and other officials also there in the period of Gupta dynasty to assist the Gupta kings. There was a Council of Ministers and other officials. So the minister office was perhaps hereditary, and there was, for example, the Udayagiri inscription of the time of Chandragupta II informs us that Virasena Sabha, the minister for war and peace, was holding this office by inheritance. Though the supreme judicial powers were vested in the king, he was assisted by Mahadanda Nayaka, Chief Justice. The king was assisted by, every time of judgment, he was assisted by Mahadanda Nayaka, Chief Justice. and Uparikas in district to the Vaisa, Patij, and in provinces to do that work. There are some officers, some officials named as Uparikas, and in the district level, there was Visayapatij. In village level, the headman and the village elders used to decide the petty cases. The Chinese traveler Hai Han stated that capital punishment was not given at all. There was no capital punishment to the people. There were some other high officials, for example, the Maha was the chief of the palace guard. The Pratihara regulated ceremonies and granted the necessary permits for admission to the royal presence. So there were another part of the administrative system was army system. Army. There was a stable army in the royal in the Gupta dynasty. The Gupta must have had a big army organization. At the time, there was the king led his army, but ordinarily there was a minister called Sandhi Vigraha, or minister in charge of peace and war. So there were many officers who joined his army. The revenue administration also there. Land revenue was the main source of state incomes besides the fines. In Samudragupta's time, we hear of an officer, Gopa Sramin, working as Aikhya Pata La Dhikrita. So there were some officers, they were regulated in the system, in the revenue systems. Another prominent high officer was Pustapala, record keepers. It was his duty to make inquiries before recording any transaction. So there are some important officers. They were both Kalidasa and the author of Narada Simiti state that 1/6 of the produce should be claimed as the royal revenue. Besides this, there was the Uparikara, which was levied on cloth, oil, etc. So like this way, there are many revenue systems. There are provinces, district, and village. Provinces. In a kingdom, there are some provinces, some districts, and some villages. So the whole empire was divided into desaj, rashtraj, or bhuktij. The inscription provides us with the names of certain bhuktij. In Bengal, we hear of Pundrabardhara Bhuktij, which corresponds to North Bengal. Pira Bhuktij corresponds to North Bihar. The Bhuktij were governed by Uparikas directly appointed by the king. So there were the Nagara Sreshti, head of the city merchants, Sarthavaha, caravan leader, Prathama Kulika, head of the artisan community, Prathama Kayastha, head of the Kayastha community. Like this way, we had some officials who rule in their own level, in their own regions. And they could able to restore peace in their areas, particularly and in kingdom or in the Gupta kingdom generally. So there was economic condition was high at the time. The people were they were laborers, they were hard workers, they were faithful, so that there were economic conditions. They were working as faithful workers. So agriculture was the prime part of the economic side. So there were cultivation was usually called khetra. Lands not under cultivation were variously called as khilla, Aprahata, etc. And inscription give the impression that uncultivated land was being regularly brought under cultivation. So, in some areas, Nivaratana was the term used for a measure of land, whereas in the inscription of Bengal, terms like Kulya Bhapa and Drona Bhapa are used. It is not possible to classify the region precisely according to the crop growth. The concern of the society with agriculture production is also reflected in the importance given to irrigation. There were also irrigation facilities, and they get some about Sudarsana reservoirs, Tadonga in Saurashtra in Gujarat. Reservoirs for irrigation facilities were there, originally built in Maurya period. The reservoirs was thoroughly repaired, but it was extremely or extensively damaged in the time of Mahakshatrapa Rudradaman. So it was again severely damaged in the time of Chandragupta. Thereafter, in 7th century CE, there is a very charming description of how cultivated fields producing crops like sugarcane were being irrigated with the help of Ghati Yantra. Ghati Yantra, there is a yantra named Ghati. In regions like Bengal, rainwater was collected in ponds and other types of reservoirs in peninsular India. Tank irrigation became gradually in demand. So, in the sources of the Gupta period suggest that certain important changes were taking place in the agrarian society. The inscriptions from Bengal refers to sale of land by district level administration to individuals who brought them by paying cash and made gifts of purchased land to Brahmanas, who were expected to perform Vedic sacrifices or to the Buddhist or Jain religious establishment. So, the Gupta inscriptions refers to different types of village residents like Gramiko, Kutumbisa, and Mahatarabha, who must have been village landholders. And their participation in land transaction indicates that they too were important members of royal society. Gramiko, Kutumbis, Mahatarabha, they were also the royal workers, royal officials at the village level. So compared with the recipients of land from the rulers and the influential categories of landowners in village, the condition of ordinary cultivation may be considered to have been rather bad. It is believed by some historians that because of the practice of land grants, the peasant population as a whole were reduced to a very low position in society. This is not entirely untrue. It was the ordinary cultivators known by various terms such as Krishibala, Karsaka, or Kinas, who had low economic and social status. So, thereafter, another part of economic condition was crafts production and trade. Patavastra, Khauma, different varieties of silk clothes, Khauma, Patavastra are mentioned in the text of this period. Thereafter, from South Gujarat and had settled in the Madhya region. Texts like Amarkusa, Brihad Samhita, which are dated to this period, list may items, give their Sanskrit names, and also mention different categories of craftsmen who manufactured them. So the craftsmen, the craft production, There were earthenwares, terracotta, braids made of different stones, objects of glass, items made of metals. Those were the craft production during the time of Gupta age. It seems that in comparison with craft production in the preceding Saka Kusana period, craft production in the Gupta period suffered some setback. It is, however, not yet. It is, however, not yet. There were organizations which facilitated the function of both craftsmen and traders. The ancient terms which were generally used for each organization was shreni or guild. The state was expected to provide the guilds protection and to respect their customs and norms. Similarly, members of the shreni were also expected to follow the norms of the organization. Although craft production and commercial activities were brief in the Gupta period, there were 2 points we should especially remember. There were many types of craftsmen and they were not all identical either in wealth or in social status. For example, there was vast difference between a goldsmith and his family with a shop in a city like Ujjaini and a family of basket makers in a village. This is reflected to some extent in the Dharma Shastras written by the Brahmins in the period. The Dharma Shastra assigns different rank to different groups of craftsmen. Although in their scheme, the craftsmen and artisans held status lower than that of the Brahmins, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. The Dharma Shastras also suggest that each group of craftsmen formed a jati or caste. So, for example, the Kumbha Karaj potters form one caste, Subarna Karaj goldsmith form another caste, and like this, according to their works, they were they were named their caste. So, although the system of caste was not really so simple, generally the trend among craftsmen was that persons following one craft formed a jati. So craft production and commercial activities perhaps started decline then. From the Gupta period onwards, in most regions, and according to some historians, this resulted in the decline of towns and cities and in greater dependence of society of agricultural production. So now we discuss about the culture of Gupta era, Gupta dynasty or Gupta rule. So cultural activities, I have already told you, reached at the pinnacle during the time of Gupta age. Golden Age. So it is referenced the Golden Age due to its cultural heritage. Golden Age named as referred to its Gupta Age because of cultural heritage. This applies to great accomplishment in the field of art and architecture, language and literature. The Gupta Age thus stand out as a significant and noteworthy departure from previous historical periods, particularly in the cultural history of India, due to impressive standards achieved by artistic and literary expressions of this time. So it has been rightly commented that the Gupta art represents ancient Indian art at its best. From the vantage point of architecture, the Gupta period reflects creative enthusiasm. The most important part of Gupta age was creative activities. In the field of creative activities, and it created enthusiasm to the people and deep sense of and awareness of beauty. These are evident in the Dasa Vatara temple at Devgarh in Jhansi district. There were many architectural works were developed during the time of Gupta age. So, I have told you Bhitargaon temple near Kanpur, Vishnu temple at Tigwa, Shiva temple at Bhumra. Like this way, many temples are constructed at different places in each territory. Parvati temple at Nacho Kuthara. Some of them are adorned with beautiful sculptural panels. The Gupta temple building activity represents evolution from the earlier tradition of rock-cut shrines. So, what we now refer to as classical language, Sanskrit. So, classical literature developed, Sanskrit literature developed during the time of Gupta age. Developing during the Gupta, Sanskrit was widely patronized by the Gupta rulers, making it the official language in their court. All their inscriptions are written in Sanskrit, ignored earlier under the influence of the Buddhist and Jaina tradition that encouraged vernacular dialects like Pali, Prakrit, Ardha Magadhi. Sanskrit saw its revival under the Guptas. Sanskrit literature, that language was revived during the time of Gupta age. So, the epics Ramayana and Mahabharata are believed to have been compiled and given their final form around 4th to 5th century CE. The great Sanskrit writer, poet Kalidasa, one of the Navaratna or 9 giants of the court of Gupta king, Kalidasa wrote he gave many contributions in the literary field. Kalidasa's dramas, Kavyas also had great importance and contributed many informations to the people of that time. So thereafter, Chandragupta Vikramaditya wrote dramas like Gupta King Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Kalidasa also wrote Abhigyana Sakuntalam, Malabhikagni Vitram, Vikramovarsyam, and poetic works such as Raghuvamsa, Kumara Sambhavam, and Meghadutam, which shows the excellent literary standard achieved during the Gupta period. Besides these, Varaha Mihira wrote Brihas Sangita that deals with scientific subjects like astronomy and botany. Aryabhata wrote Aryabhatyam, a famous work on geometry, algebra, arithmetic, and trigonometry. The Samhita and all round progress in literature was manifested during this time. So, the development of literature and literary fields reflects the achievements of things and the social life, the economic life, the religious life of the people. So, another part of Gupta age was society. Society was divided into 4 varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. With each varna performing the set of functions prescribed for it and enjoying whatever rights were given to it. This was the ideal social order, and the state was expected to preserve it. This means that when even a small state emerged in some corner of the country, the king of that state was expected to recognize this as the ideal social order. So the Brahmins came to exert considerable influence on the king, and this is quite clear from the way they received land from individual Brahmins, but also sometimes incited big groups of Brahmins to come and settle in remote areas. Thus, the number of Brahmin settlements variously called Brahmadityas, Agraharas, and so on started increasing and started spreading among other kings. The idea of Varna divided social order. So, the Dharma Shastra also speak of apadharma conduct to be followed during the period of distress. This means that the Varnas could take to profession and duties not assigned to them when they found it necessary to do so. In matters of profession also, the Dharma Shastras thus recognize the real society was different from their ideal society. So the Brahmins came to be recognized as the purest and therefore the highest Varna. Thereafter, there were four Varnas you have already known. They were Antyajas, untouchables. They were considered impure. Even their touch was considered impure, and their physical presence in areas where higher Varnas lived, and both was not allowed. The Chandalas, the Charmakaras.
Excuse me, sir. Please tell me page number.
Page number is 31.
Thank you, sir.
The position of women. The position of
ଟିକେ ବୁଝାନ୍ତୁ
ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ ଠିକ ଅଛି. The position of women of higher Varna was low. Women ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ପୋଜିସନ ସେତେବେଳେ higher Varna was low ଥିଲା. ଯଦିଓ we hear of personalities like Bhakapakach Queen, Prabhavati Gupta, who wielded considerable power. Not all women were so privileged. समस्त नारी मानकु सुविधा दिया जाउनथिला. The Brahmana text set down norms which women were expected to follow, and women were expected in the family to function mainly as an ideal wife and ideal mother. In many Brahmana texts, women were given considered for various reasons to be of the same category as the Sudras. It is significant that although Brahmanas were given land grants regularly, we do not come across evidence of land being given to Brahmana women. Another aspect of social life was that there existed great difference between the wage of life of the rich city dwellers and the people living in villages. ଗାଁରେ ରହୁଥିବା ଯେଉଁ ଅଧିବାସୀ ଏବଂ ସହରରେ ରହୁଥିବା ସହରବାସୀ ଏମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଡିଫରେନ୍ସ ଥିଲା. Ideal city dwellers was Nagaraka, the urbanite, who because of the affluence lived a life of pleasure and refined culture. There were interesting descriptions of this way of life not only in Paschimos Kama Sutra but also in other literary texts of the period. Of course, it would be wrong to presume that all classes of people who lived in cities would afford this way of life. So now we discuss about unit 3, the Krishna Buddhism and the rise of Harsa. The political scenario in post-Gupta North. India was characterized by the emergence of numerous ruling families like the Mukharis of Kanyakubja. गुप्त जुग परवर्ती समय रे भारतर राजनीतिक इतिहास रे अनेक गुड़िए परिवर्तन देखा देइछि. ନୂଆ ଶାସନ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଆରମ୍ଭ ହୋଇଛି। Emergence of numerous ruling families like the Maukharij of Kanya, later Gupta of Magadha, Kauraj of West Bengal, Maitrakas of Vallabhi, Pushyabhutis of Thanesar, etc. Many of them were originally subordinates of the Guptas. But with the decline of the political authority of the Guptas, they assumed independence. What I have told you about Gowda of West Bengal, Maitraj of Vaishali, they were the subordinates of the Guptas, but taking the advantage of the weakness of the Gupta rulers after Skandagupta, they became independent. Gupta, Skandagupta राजत्व परे परे एमाने स्वाधीन हो जाइछन्ति इंडिपेंडेंट शासक भावरे सेमाने निजकु विवेचना करिछन्ति एवं North India in the 6th century was thus an arena where multiple ruling powers. उत्तर भारत रे अनेक गुड़िए शासक शासन करिछन्ति समस्ते सेई निज निज हिसाब से शासन करिछन्ति in such a political scenario the Samantas emerged powerful. They kept control over outlying areas. तांको भितरु कहीं कहीं क्षमताशाली हो जाइछन्ति अन्य मानक सहित युद्ध करिछन्ति सेमानकु पराजित करिछन्ति एवं सेमाने शासन निजे स्वाधीन भाव शासन करबा पई आगबर होइछन्ति. So the changing political scenario in North India, new type of political centers, the Jayakandharas, Kaunaj as the new political centers. Kaunaj कन्याकुब्ज कहा जाउतला आगरु ताकू कन्याकुब्ज कहा जाउतला परे ताकू कौनज होइछि. So situated in the Kanauj district of present Uttar Pradesh, assumed a lot of significance in the politics of early medieval North India. Located in the fertile plains of Ganga, Jamuna, Dwap, Kanauj stood on an elevated area that could be easily fortified. Thus, despite the fact that it was situated in the plains, due to its favorable location, it could be easily fortified and was secure. So, the Pushyabhutis. Now we discuss the Pushyabhutis. A variety of sources inform us about the rise of the family of Pushyabhutis. Pushyabhutinଙ୍କର परिवार विषୟରେ ଆମେ ଅନେକ ତଥ୍ୟ ପାଇପାରିବା. Thanesar, which first ruled from Thanesar in Haryana and later from Kanauj in Uttar Pradesh. These sources include the Harsha Charita, accounts of Winsang, and some inscription and coins. ये सब गुड़ी को हमें पाई परिबा ये जो हर्षवर्धनଙ୍କର समय तांको पूर्वजଙ୍କର समय को हमें विभिन्न सूत्ररू विभिन्न सोर्सरू पाई परिबा. हर्षचरित एकाउंट्स ऑफ विंसान बाणभट्ट लिखिथिले हर्षचरित तांकर राज कर्मचारी हर्षवर्धनଙ୍କର से लिखिथिले बाणभट्ट हर्षचरित लिखिथिले एवं विंसान जे कि चीन परिव्राजक थिले एवं हर्षवर्धन समय रे भारत भ्रमण रे आथिले. These sources include the thereafter Banabhatta informs us that the founder king of this dynasty at Thanesar was Pushyabhuti. Pushyabhuti was the founder king. He founded the Vardhan dynasty. Vardhan dynasty was founded by Pushyabhuti. Pushyabhuti, the founder king of Vardhan dynasty. That the family was known as Pushyabhuti Vansha. However, the inscription of Harsha make no reference to him. The Vanshakhera And Madhuban plates in royal seals mention 5 earlier rulers, among whom the first 3 were given the title of Maharaja. This may indicate that they were not sovereign monarchs. The fourth king, Prabhakara Vardhana, has been described as a Maharaja, which makes us infer that he was an independent monarch. Had established matrimonial relations with the Mukharij by marrying his daughter Rajyasri with Grahavarman. Grahavarman ତାଙ୍କର ଝିଅ ମୌଖାରୀ ବଂଶର ଗ୍ରହବର୍ମଙ୍କ ସହିତ ତାଙ୍କର ଝିଅଙ୍କୁ ତାଙ୍କର ଝିଅ ରାଜଶ୍ରୀଙ୍କୁ ବିବାହ କରିଥିଲେ। ଏଇଟା ହେଉଛି ତାଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ଆଲାଏନ୍ସ, ମାଟ୍ରିମୋନିଆଲ ଆଲାଏନ୍ସ ଦ୍ୱାରା ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ଭିତରେ ନିଜ ନିଜ ଭିତରେ ସୁସମ୍ପର୍କ ସ୍ଥାପନ କରୁଥିଲେ। ବିଭିନ୍ନ ସମୟରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ବିପଦ ସମୟରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ କରୁଥିଲେ। Thanesar during the time was threatened by the Huns from the western side. Banabhatta has described Prabhakara Vardhana as a lion to the Hun deer. Lion सहित सिंह सहित प्रभाकर वर्धन को कंपेयर करा जायछि। प्रभाकर वर्धन he was the first independent monarch of Vardhan dynasty or Pushyabhuti's family. So, according to him, an army under Rajyavarman was sent to defeat the Huns. But due to the sudden illness of his father, he had to come back. With Prabhakara Vardhan's death, the family had to face troubles, times for a while. The Malava king killed Grahavarman and took Rajyasri prisoner. It appears that the Malava and the Gowda kings entered into alliance and even Thanesar was threatened. Rajyavardhan defeated the Malavas but was killed through treachery by Sasanka. Sasanka द्वारा से निहत हेले राज्यवर्धन। राज्यवर्धन किए थिले प्रभाकर वर्मनकर बड़ पुओ एवं तांकर पुओ होचंती हर्षवर्धन। और शशांक द्वारा से तांको हत्या करा गला। Now it was Harsha's responsibility to seek revenge, and in due course he was able to establish a strong empire. हर्षवर्धन राज्यवर्धनकर भाई राज्यवर्धनकर निधन परे हर्षवर्धन सिंहासन आरोहण कले एवं से दायित्व मध्य बढ़ीगला एवं केमिति प्रतिशोध नेबे तांकर भाईंकर हत्या पई एवं तांकर जो भौणी राज्यश्री को जो माने ले गईथिले केमिति उद्धार करिवे सेति पई से आगे आसिले। The political activities of Harsha, political activities, we can find from the Harsha Charitra, the life of Harsha, about the political activities of Harsha. Thereafter, Hensang's writings, Si Yuki, he wrote a book, Hensang, the Chinese pilgrims, wrote a book named Si Yuki. Si Yuki, it was written by Hensang. Such view were strengthened by the epithet of
सर पेज नंबर कहते हैं
page number 39. Page number 39. So, Harshavardhan, by the successor of his arch-rival Chalukya king Pulakesin II. Thus, in the scheme of periodization of Indian history, historians used to mark the end of an era with the death of Harsha, 647 CE. End of the Hindu period. After the death of Harshavardhan, the Hindu period also,
Sir, page of 39.
page 39.
Sir, archaeology of source and prominent and archaeological sites. Sir, page number 39 in 2 अच्छी.
Page number 39 you can find from page number 39. Page number 39.
Sir, BHIC 1.
What?
Who coach BHIC 1C1?
PHIC 132. PHIC 132. You have not known till time. We are discussing about PHIC 132. History of India from 3rd century CE to 100, 206. So you go through this book. Political activity of Harsha.
Again, sir.
Eastern campaign. There was a campaign by Harsha because he had some responsibility. Eastern campaign. The Gauda king Sasanka and the Malwa king Devagupta had. The Gauda king Sasanka and the Malwa king Devagupta had created troubles by killing Grahavarna. Like Mukhari king and the brother-in-law of Harsha, they captured Kanyakubja. Rajyavardhan, Harsha's elder brother, died in the enemy of camp. After rescuing his sister and Grahavarman's widow Queen Rajyasri, Harsha was offered the throne by the ministers of Mukherjee since they had no successor. Harsha now occupied the throne of Kanyakubja and thus began to rule over both the territories of the Vishwabutis and the Mukherjee. Conflict with Pulakesin II. The kingdoms of Harsha and Pulakesin II touch on the border of the river Narmada. In each Ahihol inscription, Pulakesin says that Harsha's joy melted away through fear when his elephant fell in battle. From the account of Huangshan, it appears that Harsha took the initiative but could not achieve any success against Pulakesin. Regarding the claim made by the successor of Pulakesin that he acquired the title of Paramaheswara by defeating Sakalottara Pathe Harsha. So R.C. Majumdar, a great historian, eminent historian, suggests that the result of the battle was magnified in favor of Pulakesin by his successor. This is a fine example of the poet's intention to speak of the rivals in royal prasasti in order to glorify the achievements of the patrons. So extent of Harsha kingdom. Harsha appears to have been in occupation of parts of present UP, South Bihar and Odisha. Some parts of Odisha also occupied by Harshavardhan. He inherited Thanesar, parts of eastern Punjab and eastern Rajasthan. Besides Bhaskar Barman, the rulers of Kamarupa was his subordinate Ali, and Harsha also exercised influence on the kings of Jalandhar and perhaps Kashmir. In the south, the Narmada was the boundary beyond which Pulakesin II was ruling. So the extent of Harsha's affairs was thus not as large as earlier historians had thought. So there is no reason to protect him as the last great Hindu emperor, or to view his reign as marking the end of the ancient and the beginning of the medieval era. In fact, contemporary historians question the view that saw the end of an era as being marked by any event like the death of a king. The transition of one era into another should be based on historical processes which had a much greater impact on all aspects of society. To another account, which was we collect from the accounts of Huitsan, the Chinese pilgrims, who visited India during the time of Harshavardhan. He stayed in India from 629 to 645 CE. He speaks about the prosperity of Kanauj and Harsha. He says that the king traveled frequently throughout his kingdom to understand the condition of his subject. Condition of the Harsha, विभिन्न स्थानों को बुलुतिले तांकर जो राज्य विभिन्न स्थानों को बुलुतिले जो जय करथिवा राज्य गुडी मध्य से बुलुतिले एवं लोकमान सहित लोकमान भेटुथिले एवं तांकर किभଳି अवस्था समय रहउछंती कोन करूछंती सब विषय से जानिबा पई इच्छा प्रकाश करुथिले एवं सेही अनुसार शासन करुथिले।
सर एक्सटेंड ऑफ किंगडम रे टोटल टिके क्लैरिफाई कर दिले
कोन
द एक्सटेंशन ऑफ हॉर्स किंगडम रे टोटल टा कहि दे टिके हाल
टोटल तो कहिबी
ओनली समरी टे साइड टिके कहि दे
क्लियरली सुनी पारुन
सर आपण पढी पढी पळौछन हम किछ बुझी पारना।
अच्छा अच्छा हर्ष एरा हर्ष जुग आरंभ हला Alberoni who came to India in the 11th century records that Harsha was in the use of Mathura and Kanauj. This era commenced from 606 CE. Harsha jugo arambha hala 606 CE ru. The date of Harsha ascendancy to throne, the Vanshakera, Madhubana, and the newly discovered Kurukshetra, Varanasi copper plates of Harsha, as well as the Salbur image inscription of Aditya Sena are probably dated in this era. Previously, the Guptas, who ruled a large part of North India, had also introduced the Gupta era. So, head of the Gupta region, the changing structure of the polity, तांकर शासन विषय हम जानिबा टाइटल ऑफ किंग्स
ये मोबाइल पे
टाइटल तांकर थिला दे शुड हैव सामंत चक्र सर्किल ऑफ फेउडाटारीज सामंत चक्र मध्य तांको कुहा जाउथिला। The subordinates used titles like Maharaja, Samanta, Mahasamanta, Ranako, etc. एभली टाइटल से मानकु भूषित करा जायतिला। These titles and designations in the land grant chapters suggest different tiers, ranks and functionaries of the administration of the kingdom. एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन शासन व्यवस्था विषय में जानिबा वर्तमान जे एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ हर्ष रेन the various official designations seems to have continued from the days of the Gupta. When some says that taxes are not heavy, तांकर शासन समय रे टैक्स गुडी को अधिक नथिला तो टैक्स प्रजा मन को निया जाउतिला अधिक नथिला। The kings took 1/6 of farmers' produce as each grain share. शस्य हिसाबरे 1/6 राजा नउथिले। According to him, there was no regular curve bought. Then he goes on to say that it was moderate and that the taxes were light. Devabhuti feels that he is probably referring to labor in lieu of taxes. Harsha was a strong ruler and inspired confidence and loyalty in his ministers. Huensang mentioned that he was an illustrious king. The days was divided into 3 periods, out of which
Sir, who was Devabhuti?
what?
Sir, who was Devabhuti? Devabhuti feels that the properly referring the labor. Who was labor?
There were some laborers, they were working in the cornfield. So,
Okay.
yes. Harsha was a strong ruler and inspired confidence and loyalty in his ministers. Huensang mentioned that he was an industrious king. His day was divided into 3 periods, out of which one was devoted to the affairs of the kingdom and another 2 to religious affairs. Religious affairs, in the field of religious affairs also, Harsha he gave praise about in the field of religious affairs. While the affairs of the state may imply more secular aspects of administration, religious affairs may point to opening of hospitals, hospital for the needy, provision of free rest houses on highways, free rest houses, जो पथिक मानक पाई फ्री रेस्ट हाउसेस सब थिला से सब मध्य हर्षवर्धन रास्तार विभिन्न स्थान रे से निर्माण करथिले डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ चैरिटी अरेंजमेंट्स ऑफ फिलोसॉफिकल डिबेट्स दान करा जाउथला तबरे डिबेट सब होथिला फ्रूट्स बियरिंग ऑन स्टडी ट्रीज एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन विभिन्न स्थान रे फल गछ सब लगेबा शिक्षा केंद्र सब शिक्षा अनुष्ठान सब प्रतिष्ठा करिबा ए सब कार्य से निज को नियोजित करिथिले खाली के राज्य शासन नहे विभिन्न समय रे लोक मानकर सुविधा पाई लोक मानकर भल पाई लोक मानकर मंगल पाई से अनेक सब लोकहितकर काम सब करुथिले से with the common man साधारण लोक मानक सहित प्रजा मानक सहित से तांको मिसिवा पाई सब चेष्टा करथि राजा तथा प्रजा मानकर दुख कष्ट तांको सहित मिसिवा पाई से इच्छा प्रकाश करुथिले जेउटा को से जाउथिले भ्रमण करिया पाई सेठी से लोक मानक सहित साधारण लोक मानक सहित से भेटुथिले जानिबा को पाउथिले सेठिकार समस्या कोन समस्या निजे डायरेक्टली ही wanted to know the problems of that area. So, for example, he knew the local geography and the temperament of the people belonging to varied terrains and that helped him in choosing the right government. Harsha was in the habit of convening personal audience with his tributary leaders, and this ensured seamless administration. In 643 CE, there were about 20 such tributary leaders. Harsha was on friendly terms with neighboring countries, पड़ोसी देश गुड़िक सहित पड़ोसी राज्य गुड़िक सहित से बंधुत्वपूर्ण भावना सृष्टि करथिले as to extend families facilities of travel and residence to Huensang. He also had diplomatic contacts with the Chinese emperor चीन शासक मान सहित जो राजनैतिक कूटनैतिक संपर्क स्थापन करने चेष्टा करथिले
डिप्लोमेटिक मीन्स
कूटनैतिक The highest title in Harsha's region was Parama Bhatta. That's a lamba na achi, long name, long title. Parama Bhattaraka Maharajodhiraja, the noblest supreme king of the kings, the noblest supreme king of the king, Raja manko bhitare supreme, Shrestha, ସେଥିପାଇଁ ତାଙ୍କୁ କୁହାଯାଇଛି। The use of such high-sounding titles became a norm from the Guptas onwards. As soon as the kings became universal conquerors and achieved foremost position among the rivals, such titles became common. So, unfortunately, the two main authorities, Bano and Huinshan, do not tell us much about Harsha's administration. There is the inscription of Harsha and Pulakesin II and his successors and other contemporary kings to give us some details of administration. The king was the supreme head of the government. He appointed the ministers and important officers of the state. He led the armies in battle. He ruled according to the ideals laid down in the Dharma Shastras. The king was assisted in his administration by council of ministers. Harshavardhana, for sound administration, ଭଲ ଶାସନ ପାଇଁ ତାଙ୍କର ଶାସନ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ସୁଦୃଢ଼ କରିପାରିଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ଗୋଟିଏ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ପରିଷଦ ଦ୍ୱାରା ତାଙ୍କର ଶାସନ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ପରିଚାଳିତ କରୁଥିଲେ। In this council were included feudatories, samantas, princes, and high officials. ତାପରେ ଗଡ଼ଜାତ ରାଜ୍ୟର ରାଜା ମାନେ, ସାମନ୍ତ ମାନେ, ପ୍ରିନ୍ସେସ୍ ରାଜକୁମାର ମାନେ ଏବଂ ଉଚ୍ଚ ଅଫିସର ମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ କରୁଥିଲେ। Was special staff officers to manage the royal palace. ସେଥିପାଇଁ ତାଙ୍କ ଶାସନ ଅତି ସୁଦୃଢ଼ ଶାସନ ଥିଲା, ଅତି ଶକ୍ତିଶାଳୀ କ୍ଷମତାଶାଳୀ ଶାସନ ଥିଲା। Political ରାଜନୈତିକ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର କ'ଣ ଥିଲା? Political activities of a famous king like Harshavardhana brings out difficulty in forming an idea about the innumerable early medieval kingdom and the extent of their respective areas on the basis of available sources. So, the Prashastis of this period are indicative of a hierarchical political structure. Inscription of the subordinate kings refers to their overlord. The phrase commonly used in this connection is Tatpad Danudhyata, literally meaning meditating at his feet. This phrase is also used by kings in connection to their fathers. However, when used by a subordinate in connection to his overlord, it means favored by his feet, thereby claiming a sort of closer association with him than others. So, at last, the consequence, the tripartite struggles for Kanauj. Harsha is credited to have established Kanya-Kubja as a symbol of royal power in North India. He occupied Kanya-Kubja, the early name of Kanauj, named as Kanya-Kubja. In the subsequent period, we see repeated attempts by rulers to position themselves as kings Kanya-Kubja.
Hello.
Sir.
Page number, sir.
Hello.
Page number, sir.
43.
Page number 43.
Thank you.
According to the title of the poem, Gaudabhasu in Sanskrit, Gaudabhasa means the defeat and death of the king of Gauda. Suggests travel between Gauda and Kanya-Kubja. Gauda and Kanya-Kubja. According to T.C. Sirkar, it begins at early age, the reign of Mokharij, when in each Harsha institution dated 554 CE. So, the legacy of the rivalry between these two powers, there were two powers, Gauda, Sasanka, ultimately ended up with the conflict between the Palas of Bengal and Bihar and the Gurjara Pratiharas of Kannauj. Even in the Raja Tarangini, Kalhans claimed that Raja Tarangini, which is written by Kalhans, the chronology of Kashmir kings. And there, Jasabharman was defeated by Lalitadya Muktapida of the Karkota dynasty of Kashmir. The veracity of the varied claims of majestic conquest put forward by the respective court poets can never be ascertained. However, such representation of heroes of poems posing themselves as conqueror of Kannauj nevertheless indicates the growing importance of Kanya Kubja in the political scenario of 6th to 8th or 9th century North India. So now, in summary, we can know the rise of Harsa reflects the rise to importance of the Ganga Jamuna Gua. No doubt that it obtained much fame in the influence accounts of Ranabhatta and Wensan. The epithet Sakalottara Pathanatha applied to him by the rivals, the Chalukya and Deccan, further emphasized its significance. The above discussion, however, would indicate how this claim is grossly exaggerated. Within putting aside some claims, the emergence of Kannauj in the post-Gupta polity cannot be denied. Kannauj commanded an impressive agrarian hinterland which was important in the growth of the town. This also reflects the changing political economy in which exploitation of agrarian resources became essential for the innumerable local, supra-local, regional dynasties that were to dominate the North India political arena for the subsequent years to come. So, this class is over. If any doubt, next class we discuss about unit number 4, unit number 5, and unit number 6.
Sir, question order discussion.
Okay.
Sir, write the 5 sentences on conflict between horse and foot.
Harsa and Pulakeshin second. Conflict between Harsa and Pulakeshin second. So, the kingdoms of Harsa and Pulakeshin second touch on the border of the rivers Narmada. In his Aihol inscription, Pulakeshin says that Harsa melted away through wars, through fears when his elephants fell in battle. From the account of Wensan, it appears that Harsa took the initiative but could not achieve any success against Pulakeshin. Regarding the claim made by the successor of Pulakeshin that he acquired the title of Paramaheswara by defeating Sakalottara Patheshwara, R.C. Majumdar suggested that the result of the battle was magnified in favor of Pulakeshin by his successor. This is a fine example of the poet's intention of speak right highly of the rivals in royal prasastis in order to glory the achievements of their patrons. So, this is the conflict between Harsa and Pulakeshin second. Okay. Thank you so much, friends.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.